Start video transitions. Okay.
Remains at large.
Realize I wasn't subscribed. I just realised I wasn't subscribed to your channel. I've rectified that though. Because I was cleaning the camera lens and realised I screwed up. Just remember to undo it.
The thing about happiness is you only know you had it. It's gone, gone, gone. You may think to yourself that you're happy, but you don't really believe it. It's only looking back that you really understand. That's what happiness felt like.
Uh, I'm good. Thankfully, it's not 1 o'clock in the morning like it normally is for these things. So that's made me a bit happier. Yeah, absolutely. Today I've actually listened to How to Heretic podcast. Amazing, especially Eli Bosnick taking the mick out of mentalists. Um, I've also been trying to research a video, but it's taken a lot longer than anticipated. But then again, what PragerU video doesn't take time? I can't hear you, Ross. Yeah, just for clarification, I can hear you, but it's not coming through the tubes.
Yeah, because I turned my mic while the music was playing. So that way nobody heard me while the music was going.
Oops.
Oh, that is my bad. I can hear Pine Snake though, yeah. But yeah, that was great. Because I'm a professional, so that that there shows how professional I am. So professional. Ugh.
Well, what is it they used to say about Maddish streams and Neil streams? It wasn't a stream until something went wrong.
Of course. You have to have something go wrong in order for it to be a proper stream. But now I can hear us. Yes, Doc, you can hear me now because, well, I'm a professional. I'm looking at my stream and I have it set on the highest setting they could go, which is 720p 60 right now, and it looks pretty good. And it buffers every now and then, but it looks fairly good to me. But
Yeah, it's looking all right.
mm-hmm. And the buffering is to be expected, especially with the fact that the latency is set to low. It always says that, as soon as you, whenever you go live, it'll say, the latency. With lowering the latency, it will end up causing some buffering and whatnot. Just had a little buffering, yeah. But it's better to go with lower latencies because then you can actually chat with the chat, and it'd be closer to real time than it would be. Because if you have it at high latency, your quality gets better, but at the same time, it takes like over a minute and a half for the chat to say something, for you to respond to it, and for them to then hear it. So it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's definitely interesting, and it sucks is what it does. But you gotta do what you gotta do. As
Yeah, the thing is,
mm-hmm.
you are doing something with your relatively minimal funds to be able to do it.
Yeah.
That Tim Pool, with all his funds, can't.
Yes, yes.
It's just impossible for him to do.
I fucking love his
You
reasoning.
know,
His reasoning is so fucking awesome. Hey, I can't do a fucking StreamYards or a Zoom call meeting with people and be able to do it properly because of reasons and shut up. That's literally what it boils down to because
yeah.
people.
And the
Mhm.
the response he has to anyone pointing any problems out is the literal argument from
Yeah, that's basically it. He sits there and
it's
he likes to say,
it's
"Nuh."
ingenious.
Yeah, I mean, how could we? Why don't we all just sit there and say, "Nah"? Rush, your sound is a lot lower than Pine Snake. Okay, well, let's see if we can't fix that. Let's that's because I have my mic setting low. Let's bump my mic settings up. That should be better now. But yeah, it's amazing to sit there and hear him argue why he can't use StreamYards. And the thing is in my opinion, and of course it's just my opinion, but in my opinion, he uses this argument because he does not want to. He wants a way out of being able to pretty much what's the word? Get out of debating some people.
Be held accountable for his bullshit.
Yeah, he wants to be able to be like, well, I can't do this stuff, so that's why I can't, go against, the people who they want me to because, well, look, I just can't do it because of because we just don't have the technology to be able to do that, my guy. And it's like, yeah, you do. Everybody's been able to do that, like, for the longest time.
Yeah. I mean, if it's that important to him, he could do it from his own phone. That's how powerful phones are these days.
Yeah.
I've got an iPhone, so it's not quite as easy. But you just have the other person set it all up, and you just join the call like I have here.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming his computer's going to be far more powerful than what I've got and what you've got combined.
Oh, yeah.
Because he has the money to be able to do it, and he seems to have the ego to buy the biggest and the best of everything.
And yet he still doesn't.
He's just fucking lazy.
Yeah. Oh, and hi, Alias Fake Name. I see you've joined the chat, too. Hi. Yeah, he just doesn't want to. And the reason why he doesn't want to is because he wants that excuse. And I just, I'm sorry, I don't classify that as a valid excuse. Not in my opinion. I just, there's nothing you can say that will make that excuse viable, in my opinion. Because you're over here talking... For him.
No, I have to slightly disagree.
Okay.
Only under very certain circumstances. Bear in mind, I don't actually know where he lives specifically.
He lives in the North Carolina, South Carolina area.
He lived in Kansas, and I'm not entirely sure if the analysis will work though. If he lives in Kansas, he has an auntie called M, and he goes off to Oz, then maybe there's an excuse.
And he goes
but there's no excuse
Oz.
Not to set it up in the first place.
And he goes, but I love it because the answer you gave is because he has to go off to Oz in order for it to not work. But yeah. Right now he has no excuse, and he just likes to. He doesn't want to right now you and I are talking, and literally, if you and I had a disagreement about something, we could debate it out right now, and still the quality would be okay, especially since you can either do live streams, or if the live stream is for some reason too bad on your bandwidth, which, let's face it, today in this day and age, whenever there's multiple people at home using up bandwidth, that can be an issue. There's no excuse where you can't just record it and then just post it as a video. Because the thing is with him,
Yeah, it's
he doesn't.
similar situation.
Yeah, well, with him, he doesn't interact with the live chat, as far as I know. Like, I watched his debate or his discussion or whatever with Vosh, and he didn't interact with any live chat whatsoever. So, if you're not going to interact with the live chat, there's no excuse to not be able to, like, if your bandwidth isn't good enough for the actual chatting part. There's no excuse not to just record the debate or discussion that you're having with someone, and then just upload it as a regular video.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was last month. I had a chat with Mrs. Snarky.
Mm-hmm.
We were 3,000 miles apart, and we sat down, we talked, and he uploaded it later. There was other reasons not to do a live stream of it. Because A, I didn't know how long it'd be, and B, I didn't know whether I could get Zoom to work properly.
Yeah.
But that worked fine.
Mm-hmm.
As you were saying, he had a debate with Vosh. He's also had a debate with Ben Shapiro or Chat or whatever it was. I've not seen it. There's a long list of people he's actually done it with.
Mm-hmm.
And he's chickening out of this one for some reason.
Yeah, and it's like...
I didn't see any technical errors with the one with Vosh.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, the one with Vosh, like, Vosh apparently has the ability to be able to not go to work. I'm guessing from his streaming and stuff like that, he probably makes enough money to where he can make YouTube or Twitch his permanent job. And so he's able to take the time and still have the money to be able to get a flight, because, like, to Tim Pool's credit, he does sit there and offer, he's like, I will pay to fly you out here, pay for you to be able to stay out here and all this stuff. And that's great and all. But then there's people like me who, if I wanted to, like, if there was a discussion that he was wanting to have that I knew a lot about the topic and I wanted to wanted to discuss it with him, I personally can't do that because I still have bills to pay home, and I still have to, have a job in order to be able to pay for them. So it's like, I can't just sit there and drop everything to just go and have a discussion with him. Whereas if we did this via a live stream where I can be here at my house, he can be there at his house or wherever he videotapes this, and we have a Zoom call, a StreamYards call.
Yeah.
Or hell, like we're doing now through Google Hangouts.
Yeah.
And be able to actually upload it that way.
Yeah.
It would be a whole hell of a lot better. And the reason why he doesn't want to do that, in my opinion...
The thing is...
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, if he's worried about his bandwidth of hosting a debate and he doesn't want to do it on someone else's channel,
Mm-hmm.
what the person is debating with, there's places like Modern Day Debates, but better,
Yeah.
that he could utilise, where it's their bandwidth that's being used. He just has to join a call like this.
Yeah.
But so would the other person, so no one has ownership apart from, so
Yeah.
it's just a cop-out. It really is.
It really is. That's all it is a cop-out. And he's finding ways to get around not having to do any of it. If he can make it harder and harder for people to sit there and be able to do it, he can then sit there and say, look, nobody wants to debate me like he's doing now. And it's like, no, some people don't have the fortunate capabilities to be able to do this permanently and get paid money to do this. They have to actually fucking have a job and whatnot, which, by the way, this is a perfect time to plug the fact that in the description, if you want to donate, you can either do it through Streamlabs or you can sit there and donate to the Patreon. And then I can sit there and do this full time and be like Tim Pool and be all, Hey, what's going on, people? Oh, what's going on, Sam Chaos? How you doing, buddy? Have you had a conversation with Sam before?
Yeah, I think I've been on with Neil and Sam,
Oh yeah.
and then obviously on the Twitter sphere as well.
Yeah. Sam's good people.
But yeah, really cool.
Yeah, I love Sam.
Yeah.
Sam's one of my
Yeah.
buddies, and
Definitely don't take no shit.
yeah, and Sam's one of Sam actually lives over there in England as well. So there's that.
Yeah, not a million miles away from me, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, and lives pretty
Yeah.
for Texas.
they're-
For Texas,
mem-
that is
If
definitely
memory serves me right, they were about an hour away.
yeah. For Texas, that's nothing. That is absolutely nothing in Texas, because like literally it could take on a heavy traffic day, an hour and a half away can be a trip to Houston. Conspiracy cats. What's Sam's talking about?
Yeah, an hour's not sure, but an hour away in this country is 1/7 the length of the country.
It's the length of the what? Say that one more time.
An hour's drive in this country is 1/7 the length of the country.
Oh wow.
It takes 7 hours to drive.
Yeah, like literally, like you can fit like 6 or 7 Englands into Texas. Like, it takes about
England's maybe. It's approximately the size of the UK. I think is Texas.
the UK is not approximately the size of Texas.
So 270,000 square miles, give or take. UK. 100. Oh, that's only in kilometers.
Yeah. But Texas is very huge. It
Oh, come on, you asshole.
Now, I will say that it's not the largest state because due to Alaska, Texas is way smaller than Alaska, since Alaska damn near covers up the entire country if you were to take it and superimpose it onto the country. And then of course Nacha likes to fuck with me because I say about how everything's big in Texas, and he sits there and says that you can fit Texas inside the outback of Australia. But to get to oh, go ahead.
I'm actually surprised they went with that. Did Notjar? I'm surprised Notjar went that route with sizes compared to America.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it'd have gone some pervy route.
Yeah, no.
You know what Notjar's like.
Yeah, I do know what Nacho's like, but he likes to what he likes to do to me is he likes to sit there and take he actually has a picture just for me with Texas superimposed into the outback and say, you don't even cover the outback. And I'm like, shut your god dang mouth, Nacho. But yeah, but no, in order to get to the different borders here in Texas, it's about a 9-hour drive to get to the border of Mexico from where I live. It's a 9-hour drive, maybe 10-hour drive to get to Oklahoma. It's a 4 mile drive to get to the border of Louisiana, and to get to the border of, is that New Mexico? Yeah, that's New Mexico next to us. To get to the border of New Mexico, it's probably a like 11, 12-hour drive. Maybe like something like that. I know that my buddy who, whenever we were graduated at AIT, we went home for a little bit. And so in AIT, this is in the military, in AIT, the longer you stay at AIT, the more amenities you get. So, for instance, if you are living on post and you're married, once you get to phase 5, you can live. If you're married, you can live off post with your wife, and you can bring your vehicle there to drive around if need be. But you have to be in phase 5 in order to do that. There's phase 4, phase 5, and phase 5 plus. But if you're in phase 4, you can be in. But if you're in phase 4, you don't get any of the amenities, and you actually have other duties to do while you're in phase 4. But in phase 5, you can live off post, and you can drive around in your vehicle. And so he just so happened to be married at the time, and he ended up.
How long did it take to get to phase 5?
Phase 5, you have to have certain tasks that you have to do. Like you have to be able to. One of the tasks you have to do is you have to pass a PT test. That should be the easiest, but depending on how you are, like me, I can sprint, but I can't fucking for the life of me, I cannot run. And so I had to have a pacer in order to pass the PT test. But you have to then also be able to do the Soldier's Creed. You have to be able to I think remember the Army song. There's a bunch of little tasks that they have you do in order to be able to get to phase 5. And then phase 5 plus has those tasks plus a few additional tasks that you have to do. But phase 5 plus is really not all that big of a deal. It's pretty much the same as phase 5, but you may get like a couple of extra amenities. I made phase 5 at one point just in time to be able to go off post to watch a movie with a friend of mine with a couple of friends of mine who were actually on their way out. They were graduating, and so this was the last big hurrah that we could do before they left. And so that's what we did was we went off and we watched, if I'm not mistaken, the first Thor movie whenever it was out in theaters. So we did that. But anyways, so my buddy, who his last name was Jodat, and it was hilarious because he would sit there and say, you know, that he's Jodat and now you know dat. And so it was like, oh, okay, I gotcha. But so he sat there and he drove home because he reached phase 5 plus, I think. And so he was able to live off post with his wife, and he had his vehicle and everything. And so, hey, theoretical. But he ends up driving home. And he lived in Arizona. And I flew home. So I sat there and had to wait like 2 days after I already graduated and everything. Because my flight was originally scheduled for that following day. But then, due to circumstances, it kept getting pushed back to the day after that. So I had to stay in a hotel room for a day with a few of my buddies. And so we ended up spending a day out on the town and whatnot. But we ended up flying. I ended up flying from, God, what was that? What town was AIT in? It was in, Augusta? Is it Augusta? Yeah, I think so. Augusta, Georgia. I flew up to Charlotte, North Carolina. Caught a connecting flight from there to Houston. And then my girlfriend at the time picked me up, and we drove back down towards where I grew up at. And about a couple of days into being home, he sends me a text, and he says, 16 hours, and I still have yet to make it through Texas. And I was like, yeah, we're a big state.
Yeah, and you've got some funny speed limits as well, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, there's definitely some.
It's like a long straight road, and maximum you can go is 50.
In some places, yeah, and then other places, like for instance, I-10 from about Florida into about Mississippi, and maybe even into Louisiana, is 70 miles an hour, and then when you get into Texas, it's like 60 miles an hour. So I don't know how much that is in kilometers. But it's 60 miles an hour.
Miles an hour is fine for
Oh,
me.
okay.
It's what I normally work in.
Oh, okay then. Yeah, so 60 miles an hour, and then you have some places that are 55, some places that can go up to 70, and it just is like, it depends on what route you take and everything, but you know, it gets,
Yeah, I think it's Route 66. Is it Route 66 that goes from east straight across east to west to California?
I don't know if Route 66
Uh,
enters into Texas.
or whichever one it is, anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Route 66 enters into Texas, but I
Yeah,
could definitely look that
but
up.
there's
Let's see here.
well, it's not so much whether it goes into Texas.
Oh,
It's there's miles upon miles upon miles of arrow straight roads, and it's 50 miles an hour in some of these places. It's sort of like, why? There's
yeah.
on these particular stretches, there's no towns, there's no houses for people to get run over.
Oh,
There's no particular dangers
Ri-
other than you're going to get a speeding ticket.
I just pulled up Route 66 speed limit, and it says if you find yourself in New Mexico traveling down a stretch of Route 66, you can drive over a quarter-mile long rumble strip, and your car's tires will play "America the Beautiful." That's assuming you're driving at the speed limit of 45 miles per hour. That is actually pretty funny.
Wow. Okay, that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah,
That's cool. I've got to admit
that is pretty cool. I would want to do that.
I mean, over here, if you go over
Mhm.
yeah, I would definitely. Over here, if you go over a rumble strip, the most you're going to get is the owner of the car crying because it's destroying it at 5 miles an hour.
Yeah, over here, like in Texas, we don't really like all of it's just the regular rumble stuff, as far as I know, unless somebody did some funny shit there. But oh wow, every just typing in Route 66 speed limit just keeps pulling up the New Mexico strip about playing America the Beautiful. Somebody says you'll never. Okay, yeah, no, that's the same thing. Cause there's one title that says you'll never believe this hidden message on Route 66, but then it says, but like everything in life, there's a catch. One can only hear the song when traveling at exactly 45 miles per hour, which is the speed limit. So that's so it's talking about the same thing, but yeah, like everything's is talking about it. About that one particular stretch of highway.
Why did the phrase that then?
Do what?
Why did the phrase that then when you just read that like it's straight out of Back to the Future?
Because it's
It's sort of like
it's
you've
clickbait.
got to go precisely this back.
Oh, because the thing is like so
It did sound like Back to the Future the way you were reading it.
yeah, because the thing is what they want to do is like so everybody goes like it doesn't matter where you are in America. Everybody goes above the speed limit. This is just like common knowledge. Like nobody travels the speed limit because especially like when the speed limit's 45 miles an hour, nobody wants to travel the speed limit because you're like, why would I want to do that whenever I can get to where I'm going faster if I go above the speed limit? So this here is them trying to make a way to get people to go the speed limit. And that particular site, I mean, like that said that it did that way because like it's all clickbaity. Like I mean, the title itself, you'll never believe this hidden message on Route 66. That's clickbaity. And then so they're gonna write the article in the most clickbaity way possible. Let's see here. I'm
Yeah.
gonna head.
Um,
Need to be out of bed to go pick small humans up from school.
Okay.
Okay, see you later, Sam. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it's so many times people are criticised for having clickbait headings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's usually coming from the right towards the left.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking people like Suris, Telltale, Simon Dan, and all these other people that use intentional clickbait titles.
Mm-hmm.
Surely the right realizes clickbait is a common thing, and it's not just amongst lefts to, I don't know, reincarnate the devil or whatever.
Yeah.
Surely it's normalized now.
Yeah, clickbait titles have been normalized.
Or am I just thinking too much common sense for these rights?
You definitely are just thinking too much common sense because clickbait titles are a common thing. And the reason why is, I mean, let's face it, especially whenever you have someone like Cyrus, who his entire job is YouTube right now. His entire job is based on you clicking on these titles. Of course, we're going to have clickbait titles. Whenever, especially if that is your sole income, you're going to want to, you're going to want people to click on your titles. And if you have a clickbaity title, then people are more likely to click on it. So, and I do not blame him for that one bit, because, I mean, if this was my sole job, I would do the same thing. I would sit there and make the most clickbaitiest titles, and whenever people click on it, they're like, I would keep it to where it was close to the title, but it would still be very clickbaity in a sense, because it'd be like, oh, this isn't exactly what is going on, but you know what? I'm going to...
Yeah.
Because that's just the way you get people to click on it.
Yeah, it's like when you do a response to someone, you intentionally use their name, so it shows up in the algorithm, so even their supporters come and eventually find your video.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and hi, Steven. What's going on, buddy?
Hi. Been a while since Stephen.
Yeah, Steven. Steven and I chit chat on Twitter all the time. God, the actual live stream is way behind. It just now brought up the Sam.
Yeah, I think it's because it buffered so much
Yeah.
in little bits.
Yeah, that's most likely what's going on, is because of the buffering. But it's gonna do that. I mean, it's the price we pay whenever we're, because of bandwidth and all that other good stuff. So, what's going on?
Unfortunately.
So what's going on? What does that say? 2 apps using your microphone. Okay, that's cool. Trying to see what all the things are down here saying. But anyways, yeah. So what's going on over in your neck of the woods, bud?
In my head, I'm actually for once proud of a part of my country.
Mm-hmm.
Scotland has unanimously voted in their parliament to make sanitary products free for people who menstruate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
So
just got done
that's
reading that.
amazing news. Yeah. The rest of the UK is still arguing whether we should take away VAT from certain products,
Mm-hmm.
which I believe is equivalent to your sales tax.
Yeah.
So Scotland is trailblazing, first in the world. Whilst finding this out, I found out Michigan has removed sales tax from them
Mm-hmm.
in your neck of woods.
Yeah.
And Justin Trudeau made them free in schools for anyone that needs them.
Nice.
So there is positives in the world again.
Yep, there is. And some more positive news.
Obviously, Trump lost in Georgia
Yep,
again,
yep,
Michigan again.
yep.
And there was in Wisconsin, I think, as well. He's lost again.
I think so. I think it was Wisconsin.
So yeah, the world's looking bright.
Yeah, and it's fucking amazing.
Pennsylvania as well.
Yeah, Pennsylvania as well. Yeah, it's fucking amazing that you know, the entire Trump campaign has sat there and tried to, you know, put doubt on everything from the mail-in ballots to the actual votes that were casted, and they've done anything and everything they can to stop the democratic process of voting, and they're trying to make it to where Trump won another term, and it was getting it's not that I knew for like. Once I started actually paying attention to a few days ago, or not a few days ago, but like a week or two ago, whenever the polls were coming in, and I was chit-chatting with Nathaniel from Divine Disbelief. We were talking, and it seemed that because I was talking with him, and he said that at this point in time, Arizona and New Mexico hadn't been called, but they were heavily leaning towards Biden. And so, with Arizona and New Mexico not being called yet, and Michigan at this point in time, I think was still red-ish. Same thing with Pennsylvania. With you know, these not being called yet, we were discussing it. And, he said, Nathaniel said that I believe that Arizona and New Mexico are both going to be blue. I believe that Michigan is going to flip. I believe that Pennsylvania is going to flip. He said, I think that Georgia is going to flip. He's like, but I think North Carolina, I think they're going to stay with Trump. And, you know, we were sitting there going over all the different things and whatnot. And, eventually, everything he said came true because Arizona came in as Biden, New Mexico came in as Biden, Michigan towards the end started flipping and then eventually did flip. Same thing with PA, and same thing with Georgia. Georgia was heavily pink, and then it started flipping to blue, and now it's blue. And North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, still went to Trump. And so everything he said was true. And so it was very, very fun watching all this happening. And so we, you know, I sat there and I agreed with him whenever he was talking, because a lot of people, a lot of people sat there and saw that, like, Texas for a little bit was blue. And they were like, oh my God, Texas is going to flip. And the thing is what people neglected to see is that when polls opened on November 3rd, Texas and a lot of other states, they had counted the early votes first. What they did was they sat there, and as all the people were going to the polls on November 3rd, the week or two prior to that, whenever they opened up early voting up until November 3rd. So from whenever they opened to November 2nd, they counted all of those polls before they counted the polls on that were coming in on November 3rd. And so because they counted those first, it looked...
That makes sense.
Yeah, because they counted those first, it gave put Biden ahead of the lead, you know, in those states. Because when you have a candidate that's over here telling people that early voting is pretty much bad, mail-in voting is bad, and that it's wrought with fraud and all this stuff, and so you're going to have a whole entire base that is only going to be voting by polls on the day that the polls open on the 3rd. And so a great majority of Trump's fan base were going to be voting on November 3rd. What ends up happening is, of course, Biden was going to get ahead in the polls at that point in time. But what ends up happening after the polls from November 3rd start getting counted, those polls start coming in, and it pushes Trump in the lead in the states that were heavily Republican. And so you have people, were over here talking about that, and it's like, oh, we were so in the lead. It's like, well, yeah, but that's because they were counting polls, the early pollers. And then you have the states that they saved the early polling for last, and people are like, look, Biden's getting, a lot of Republicans were like, Biden got all of these, all these votes out of nowhere. How did that work? And I sit there and I've had this discussion with people in real life, where they sit there and like, how did this happen? And I was like, well, whenever you have a candidate that tells people that early polling is terrible, and so they don't do that, and then you have states that end up, the early pollers get counted last. You're gonna have votes come in from Biden because most of his fan base ends up doing the early polling, and so their votes get counted last. And so it took them a minute to kind of understand that, because they're like, but these votes came out of nowhere. I was like, no, they didn't.
Some still don't.
Yeah. I was just like, no, they didn't. They didn't come out of nowhere. They came out.
Some still don't understand that, though.
Oh, of course not. Of course they don't. They think that it's all still, this is all a coup from the Democrats, and it's like, no, that's not what's going on at all. It's not a coup. The only coup that's happening is on the Republican side with Trump. Like, Trump is doing everything he can to stage a coup.
Yeah. Have you seen his most recent poll that he's posted?
Mm.
It's from someone like OANN, and it shows something like 90% of their viewers think Trump won the election.
Of course they did, because
Well, of course they're gonna, because they're a majority of them Republican,
yeah,
who are hard on for Trump.
yeah,
Believe every single word he says and all the rest of it, and they can't understand how all their viewers can think that Trump won but didn't actually win. It must be a conspiracy, not a confirmation bias.
yeah. And the thing is like, whenever you try to ask them, okay, okay, there was some kind of fraud going on. So this is what you believe, is that you believe that there was some kind of fraud that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So where was this fraud? And whenever they sit there and bring up the evidence, they're like, well, look at, like, for instance, there was a Fox News person who was talking to someone who was in not Utah, what is it? Nevada. Somebody from Nevada.
Idaho.
No, it was Nevada. It was they were from Nevada. They were in Clark County, which is the county that has Vegas. And this person, they blurred out, they pretty much made them anonymous with changing their voice and blacking their appearance out. And she was talking about how she was not a poll watcher, but somebody who was counting the ballots. And she went out on break and she walked around the building twice, and she came across this person who outside in front of this table or whatever, there was a Biden bus, and they were looking at ballots or whatever. They were either duplicating them or they were like throwing some ballots away, or I don't remember what the fuck it was that she claimed. And it's funny that she claimed all this stuff, and she got on Fox News to talk about it. However, she didn't actually outright make any kind of claims. Like she didn't tell, like, say, oh, the stream went offline. Why did the stream go offline? Why is the stream... Yeah, it says that stream went offline. I don't know what happened.
There's not a time limit on it, is there?
No, there shouldn't be. Oh, wait, nope, there it goes. It's back online, apparently. But, it just said that it went offline for a second. I don't know why. Probably because of the connection or whatever. But, anyways, so, she didn't make an actual formal complaint. Like with, with any kind of court system or any kind of law enforcement or anything like that. She didn't make any kind of formal complaint. The only place this can be, her complaining about this was on Fox. And so it's like, if you believe that there was some kind of fraudulent activity going on, why didn't you take this up with, like, the courts or take this up with anybody else? And it's like, why would you just continuously, why would you just go on Fox and talk about it?
The thing about Fox News is they don't even have to give up the sources.
Oh, of course not. Of course you don't have to give up the sources.
Fox News isn't obligated. Is that constitutional, or is that a Supreme Court ruling?
About what? About Fox not being able to give up sources?
Yeah.
It's actually, I don't think it's any of that. Like most as far as I know, most news sources don't have to give up their sources. They can sit there and, especially if the source asks to remain anonymous, they don't have to give up sources. Let me look it up just to make sure. I mean, I don't want to be talking out of my ass. Why do...
It just seems strange that a news, a publication can withhold information that would be pertinent in solving a crime. I kind of understand it in the case of leaking of information where they would incriminate themselves.
Right.
But when it's evidence for a crime being perpetrated by someone else, surely they've got to give up the sources then.
AP.org, anonymous sources. Okay, let's go to AP.org and see what they say. AP, of course, is the Associated Press. Anonymous sources, it says, under AP's rules, material from anonymous sources may be used only if the material is information and not opinion or speculation and is vital to the news report. The information is not available except under the conditions of anonymity imposed by the source. The source is reliable and in a position to have accurate information. Let's see. Transparency is critical to our credibility with the public and our subscribers. Whenever possible, we pursue information on the record. When a newsmaker insists on background or off-the-record ground rules, we must adhere to a strict set of guidelines enforced by AP News Management. Okay, so that's just saying, how they use that. Let's see here. Reporters who intend to use material from anonymous sources must get approval from reporters should proceed with... Okay, that's just talking about how... It doesn't talk about why some sources can remain anonymous. Let's go to... Now, this source is from Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt. I know that Wikipedia is best because of the fact that... or for, like, overviews of things. It's not best for in-detailed stuff. So... Divulging the identity of a confidential source is frowned upon by groups representing journalists in many democracies. In many countries, journalists have no special legal status and may be required to divulge their sources in the course of a criminal investigation as any other citizen would be. Even in jurisdictions that grant journalists special legal protections, journalists are typically required to testify if they bear witness to a crime. Journalists defend the use of anonymous sources for a variety of reasons. Access. Some sources refuse to share stories without the shield of anonymity, including many government officials. Protection from reprisal or punishment. Other sources are concerned about reprisal or punishment as a result of sharing information with journalists. So that protection aspect would be mainly for those who are like whistleblowers. So like if you work at a company and you see some wrongdoings going on and that are illegal, and you come forward with to journalists, the anonymity aspect would be best for that, because if you give out your name and that company ends up seeing these stories, which of course they will eventually, what will end up happening is you will get they can like fire you. You can a lot of different bad things can happen to you. Illegal activity. Sources which are engaged in illegal activity are usually reluctant to be named in order to avoid self-incrimination. This includes sources which are leaking classified. Okay, so the illegal activity also covers the those who are whistleblowers. Classified information or details of court proceedings which are sealed from the public records. The use of anonymous sourcing is also criticized by some journalists and government officials. And the criticism against this is unreliability. It says it is difficult for a reader to evaluate the reliability and neutrality of a source they cannot identify, and the reliability of the news as a whole is reduced when it relies upon information from anonymous sources. Misinformation and propaganda, which, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory.
Well, I've just been doing a bit of searching whilst you've been looking there as well, and it seems there is actually case law.
Oh, there is a law?
Brandsburg versus Hayes, the 1971 case of Brandsburg. 1971 case of Brandsburg versus Hayes. The court ruled that reporters' privilege was not guaranteed by the First Amendment, but the publicity surrounding the case helped introduce the concept of reporters' privilege into public discussion. As a result of the case, a Kentucky reporter was forced to testify about his sources and story to a grand jury. Another one, Tracy versus Missoula. The University of Montana student Linda Tracy was issued a subpoena for video she took of a violent encounter between police officers and a group of residents. The case, which was ultimately dismissed, involved obtaining unedited footage of the encounter, which was used in a documentary Linda Tracy made for an undergraduate journalism class. Although she won a case, her status as a real journalist was called into question. Even with the victory, the court did not specifically address its protections and privacy extended to student journalists, etc., etc. And then there's Electronic Communications and Privacy Act, passed in 1986, and protects bank transactions, telephone digits, and other information. The act also encompasses what organisations must provide to law enforcement with subpoenas such as name, address, durations of service used, types of device used, and source of payment. This is known as required disclosures policy. It includes later provisions to prohibit access to stored electronic devices. And then there's Edward Snowden and his case.
Oh, the Edward Snowden thing.
And that's just in the US, but apparently it's also covered by international law.
Yeah, the Edward Snowden.
The Human Rights Council.
Yeah, the Edward Snowden thing was is amazing. I just like people. A lot of people don't understand the case behind Edward Snowden and what happened with him, and it's incredibly the story itself is incredibly good. If you ask a great majority of people, they will say that They will say that he's a traitor, that he did bad things, and that's not at all correct.
I have to slightly disagree with you. It's not at all not at all correct, because there were things that he did which put real lives at harm,
Yep, but
or at risk of harm. But the rest of the sort of like 95% of it was absolutely right what he did. It's just this 5% he was deluded into thinking that this was the right thing to do.
Well,
for that 5%.
well, the thing is, is that whenever it came to all of that, it, like, for instance, for those of y'all who might be listening, and future who might watch this, what happened with, if you don't know what happened with Edward Snowden, is Edward Snowden was a member of, like, the CIA. He was, more specifically, he was in the more. He was more into the electronic side, like as far as like, creating different systems in order to do different aspects within the CIA, and a lot of it had to do with spying. Let's face it, that's what it was. It was spying on people. And there's actually a very, very great movie that is now out on Netflix that's just labeled Snowden, and it's about his life and about the things he did within the CIA. And it started off with spying on specific individuals that were overseas and things like that. And then he created a program that was supposed to help with certain things. What he thought that this program was going to be doing was not at all what it ended up happening. They ended up using it to spy on several different countries, and he come to find out that the majority of the spying was done on America's own people. He ends up figuring this out by looking into what the program that he created was doing. And when he found out that a great majority of the spying was on American people, he downloaded the information and ended up taking it to reporters that he felt would be responsible with the information. And he gave it to them. He deleted it off of his hard drive, or off of the flash drive, or whatever that it was that he was using. And he said, now it's y'all who has it, I don't. And he wanted people to, he wanted the reporters, he knew these reporters were going to do the most ethical thing in his eyes. While I do agree that, with you, Pine Snake, that there was some people who it did end up being a terrible thing for, ask ourselves is it the people who he spotlighted were the ones that were doing the spying on the American citizens? And in that case, it's like...
Yeah, I think it's a clear distinction we have to make.
Yeah.
That it's not the people that were spotlighted for doing the thing against the American people, but some of the information that he shared also had were also in areas where they were made known when they were undercover, and those people had to be dragged out really quick and are still at risk today.
Well, the thing is,
it's them ones that I think is the small 5%. It might not even be as big as 5%.
But the thing is
It was them people that he put at risk.
But the thing is that I think that the great majority of the information that he brought forth was the fact that these people were spying on American citizens. Like, this wasn't just, these are people who are overseas who are doing all this stuff over here. A lot of it is the fact that people are spying on American citizens.
That's the thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the people in the spying on American citizens, especially by the CIA, where that's not in their mandate. Yes, I am absolutely 100% with you on them. It's the ones that were overseas, that were undercover doing various spy shit. It's them ones that I think he was in the wrong for highlighting. Although it may have been unintentional, they may have been linked to spying in the US, but then went overseas and it was exposed at that time when they'd left the US and gone overseas. It's just I think there were better ways he could have gone about it
Well, there's definitely better ways. Like
for that minority. The rest, I agree with you 100%.
like there are like it is there are better ways he could have gone about it. Like he could have definitely censored out some of the people's names that are overseas that are in delicate situations. And him being like the fucking computer genius that he was, he definitely had the ability to be able to do that before giving the information out to these news sources. But the thing is like the great majority of what he did was for the better good of because it spotlighted the fact that the United States government was in fact spying on its own populace, which is a thing that they assured us was not happening. And that is one of the big key takeaways with Snowden was the fact that he spotlighted saying, "Hey guys, our government is spying on us, and this is the proof." And so, to be honest, even though they shut down that the site and all that stuff, to be honest, I think what they did was they most likely found a better way of spying on the American citizens that is now definitely deeply classified, that it makes it to where nobody can whistleblow or whatever, and they just slapped a new name on the project.
No one can download the details and pass on to journalists.
Yeah, and they probably just pretty much slapped a new name on it.
I think we agree on that point. Mm-hmm. However, I'd like to take it back 5-6 decades.
Okay.
Do you not just think this was the new Hoover principle? Because let's face it, the CIA aren't the first agency to be. I did it from the 50s.
Oh yeah.
All the way through to the late 70s, early 80s.
Oh yeah.
And it was initially started by, I believe it were Hoover.
It might have been.
With the Red Scare.
Yeah. And
so,
but the thing is with the Red Scare, what makes this even more interesting is that it wasn't just the government doing this. This was the government also kind of rewarding people for doing it. That's why there was a whole entire blacklisting of people in Hollywood, and all you had to do was accuse, which was the worst thing about this Red Scare, was all you had to do was accuse people of being communists, and the very second your accusations go out there, bam, that person gets blacklisted. The government comes in and takes them, and it was just like the government rewarded you for openly accusing people, and it was a horrible thing that ended up happening. And I really wish.
Yeah, it actually went a step further.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
It went a step further because you didn't even have to be accused for your life to be over. If someone suspected that you were going to be accused, they wouldn't hire you in Hollywood, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you hadn't been accused, the government had been nowhere near you. Just the fact that you had a friend of a friend of a friend who had been accused,
mm-hmm.
you were also suspected, and just in case you were blacklisted by Hollywood. I know it's not the best source to be getting some of this information from,
mm-hmm.
but what's it called? A podcast. forgetting what it's called, but it's by No Illusions, Eli Bosnick, Heath Enright, Cecil and Tom from Cognitive Dissonance as well.
Mm-hmm.
Citation needed, sorry.
Oh, okay.
And they did the Red Scare not long ago, I don't think. And there were actors who were blacklisted for years because they were friends of friends of friends of someone who was blacklisted over the Red Scare.
Yeah, and that alone is fucking horrible.
So the point of it is this spying on the American people. Yeah, this spying on the American people isn't anything new. To the point where it went back to pre-Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember it were the FBI or the Secret Service or something was initially set up to spy on northern politicians, or was it southern politicians or whatever it was, because they were expecting a separation of the states over the growing abolitionist movement.
Right, and the thing is like
so
spying
again, nothing new,
and the thing
which is quite worrying.
Yeah, and the thing is about when it comes to spying on American people, on your own country, is like you can make such a great case for it because, for instance, one of the biggest issues that America has, and a lot of countries have, is domestic terrorism. You have people within your own country that are attacking, groups of people, or, they could be attacking a city or be attacking a high-ranking politician or something like that. And you sit there and you get to the point that it's like, we all know that these things are bad, that these things should be no more, that we shouldn't have these things. And you can make a very great case that spying on the nation is a good thing for the fact that it's like, well, if we spied on the American people, we could end up finding these people who are planning to do domestic terroristic attacks and stop them before they even become a thing. Like, for instance, most people know that I'm a Texan.
A Georgia senator?
What?
No, it wasn't Georgia. What there was a senator where they wanted to abduct her because of the lockdown measures. They were only this year, a couple of months ago.
Oh yeah, there was that, and then there was another one.
By spying on particulars.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, but the scenario I was going to bring up is the fact that everyone knows I'm a Texan, and a few years ago, my hometown actually had a high school shooter, and he killed like 10 people, and that is a form of domestic terrorism. He walks into a school, ends up shooting people and killing them and injuring some, and so it was a domestic terroristic event. And the thing is whenever you look at all the stuff that happened, you can sit there and piece all the evidence together. And he even sat there and said something about it on Facebook or something like that. And he didn't say that he was going to attack the school, but he left hints about what he planned on doing. And you can sit there and see all this stuff occurring. And what ends up happening is if you had somebody spying on the American people, if you had an organization that actually spent their dedicated time spying on everybody, you could have ended up finding this information out, finding out all the stuff he was doing, and ends up actually stopping that high school shooting from happening. So these are, and then like you said, there's the Georgia senator who sat there and there was attempts to kidnap them or whatever, or hold him hostage. Same thing went up in Illinois or Iowa or something like that. There was a governor who did something that a bunch of Republicans tried to kidnap her or something like that, and it got stopped. But you could stop these things from happening if you allow people to to sit there and spy on American citizens. However, we are people who do not like to be spied on, and this goes against our ideals of freedom. And so it's that reason alone that the government will not or ever be willing to openly admit that they are spying on their people, because we put freedom above all else. Like, as long as we have the freedom to do shit, we're happy. If you take away that freedom by spying on us, then we're not happy. And it's because of this whole entire ideal of big government. And I can say that I'm one of the people that I do believe that we should have freedoms, and that we should that the government should not spy on us on our every waking moment, because that is kind of fucked up. So it's really, so, like, there is a great argument for it, but at the same time, no one that I know of, at least, will ever go for that, because it is a fucked up thing to do to the American people.
The thing about the America in general, it needs a fundamental social shift of ideology. There is an enhanced view of personal freedom without a care for anybody else. That is what gun laws are about. I want the ability to commit murder without being held accountable. If you have a loaded gun sitting there ready and waiting, that is with intent. However, there is also the argument, well, the criminals have guns, therefore we need guns as well, and it's a rare gun you can find. Which, there are some levels of understandability of it, and some train of thought which, yes, okay, you can see where they're coming from. However, if you have a different change in outlook on things, you then no longer need the guns to protect yourself, because nobody has guns.
Well, the thing is
this is the principle.
Well, the thing is here in America,
which is, I think, the same as what you're saying with the spying.
Yeah. But the thing is here in America, we so
Go on.
So the thing is here is we have this whole entire thing where they sit there and say, well, if we take away guns, all the bad people will have guns. And the simple response that I have for that is the fact that, well, that is the case. The thing is why do the bad people have guns? Why do the bad people use guns? Well, the part of that issue is that these people who use guns, and this isn't a race thing, this is just people across the board as far as quote unquote bad people. When they have guns and they use these guns, it's mainly because their basic needs are not met, and you can see that in other countries when basic needs are met, they have no use for these types of weapons, because if, like, say for instance, I'm poor. This is a fact. I am poor. I don't have bukus of money. Otherwise, I'd have a whole hell of a lot better equipment, and I'd be living in a house instead of an apartment. So, it's safe to say I'm poor. Now, I do own guns myself. I have a 1911, I have a shotgun, and I have a little 22 six-shooter. And if I got to the point to where I had no means of keeping myself afloat, like I couldn't get a job for whatever reason, I'm not on disability, I'm not on any kind of anything, then what ends up happening is I decide that I'm going to go and steal something from someone. I'm going to, like, steal their big TV or steal their, expensive stuff, so that way I can go and pawn it. My easiest way to do that is to have a gun with me, so that way whenever I go to do these things, what ends up happening is, if I am caught in the middle of doing it, I can pull out my gun and threaten to shoot someone for trying to stop me. And if if they eventually end up trying to stop me, I'll end up shooting them and taking their stuff anyways. So this is the logic. This is what people think of whenever they say, "Oh, the bad guys have guns, so I need guns." But if you gave them the basic things for living, like for instance, the UBI, the Universal Basic Income, if you give them healthcare to where they don't have to go without basic healthcare needs, if you were to, do a lot of these different things that are in just about every other first world country, like basic things that are given to them as rights, then what ends up happening is their quality of life goes up. And because not only do they already have a basic level of income to where they get all their, like their food and all that other stuff, basically given to them, and they have healthcare given to them, so that way they can actually be able to go and see doctors and things like that. They tend to be a lot happier. Now, if they want a lot of the other luxury items, they then, of course, have to go and get a job, so that way they can actually afford to get luxury items. So, whenever this happens, you see crime get reduced. And in a lot of countries where there is a basic income, people don't feel the need to have to go and rob because all their basic needs are met. Because a lot of people may be under the assumption that...
it's interesting you say that.
Oh, go ahead.
It's interesting you should say that, because in the last 25 years or so, the following nations have banned, at the very least, handguns. Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. And this was all after atrocities of gun violence within schools predominantly, but generally public places. In that time, there has been an average of 50 a year in America, with an average death rate of 10 per incident. 10 was around about the figure, the last gun crime in the UK of this kind, and guns were immediately banned except under very few conditions. Same in Australia, same in New Zealand, and I think last year in Canada. And all these have a reasonable but not perfect UBI. They all have some form of universal health care, a robust social safety net. So there is definitely credence to what you're saying. And these are nations where they have a variety of gun cultures behind them. The UK doesn't particularly have one, but Australia and Canada are very similar to America, especially in the founding.
Right.
So there is a gun culture there, but they've all accepted that something needs to be done, and something happened.
And
the other critical factor that these countries don't have that America does is the NRA. Yeah.
And the thing is whenever it comes to America, is like we are big fans of guns. Like, I'm in a general sense. Of course, there's quite a few people who are not fans of guns, but like me, for instance, I'm a very big fan of my guns. I love my guns, and I will keep them until there is a time whenever they say guns are now banned or whatever, which won't happen anytime soon. But I mean, if I knew for a fact that my country was good on, like, say, universal income and healthcare, and that they said that we're going to do this thing where we buy back your guns, you give us your guns and we'll give you money for them, then I will be probably one of the first ones in there. Like, I would then apply for like hunting guns, because I do love to go hunting. But the thing is that is something that's not going to happen, because people who are very big gun advocates, the one thing that they don't want to admit to is the fact that the only argument against for gun ownership that is a valid argument for them is the fact that they like guns. Like they want to sit there and have, oh well, all the bad guys will have guns. All this will happen. All this will happen. And the thing is all these fell through whenever you give people basic shit that they need to live. And so the very second you realize that your only reason for owning guns or for wanting people to own guns is because you like guns, then you realize that even those who are against guns will sit there and say, oh, well, that is a that is a valid reason for owning a gun. I like it, I own one. And so of course you're going to have quite a few people who will sit there and tell you, oh, that's not a good enough reason to own a gun. But for the most part, people will sit there and agree that, oh, that is a valid reason for owning a gun. And once they get over that, then what ends up happening is, go ahead.
You say just sorry. It's valid reason to have a gun, but not a valid reason to have a live gun.
A live gun? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, one that's not been decommissioned, or a replica of some description. No, I'm basing this on the assumption that you're on about from the aesthetics, like having it hung up on your wall, like you would have said.
Okay, yeah, no,
or something like that.
So what I mean is, like, for instance, the guns I like, the guns that I own, I like them. I love my 1911. I like to go. I don't have the money to be able to do it, but I would love to go to once the pandemic is finally under control. I would love to go to a range and go firing my gun. And a lot of people who own guns like them. They like their guns, not just because the guns are decommissioned or whatever. They like them because they're. I mean, let's face it. For those who like guns, shooting a gun is just fucking awesome. Like it's a great big stress relief and all these other things.
So I'm with you now.
Mm-hmm.
I did when I were in the army. I did enjoy the times that I went up to the range and practiced as rifle drills.
Mm-hmm.
So with this being the case, and you like your guns, you like to fire them, why can't they be stored at the gun range at a licensed facility for you to then go and shoot? Just whenever you want, just turn up and you buy your membership or whatever.
Right.
Why can't that be a reasonable?
This all goes. For me, I can't speak for everybody. I can speak for myself. But for me, the way I see it is like growing up, I was, like I've already mentioned, I was poor. And there's been several times where we had things and storages that end up, we don't end up paying for, and all of our stuff ends up being sold off to other things. And so I've always had this affinity of keeping my things with me because of that. I know it's a completely mental thing with me. But I tend to like to have my things, like, for instance, when I was in high school.
Again, I've not explained myself
properly. Okay, go ahead.
I've not. I'm working on the assumption that we already have the UBI and we already have the health insurance, healthcare, and all these things that you described as being necessities for life.
Right.
We are living in a utopia now. And the only excuse left is you like your guns, whether it be the aesthetics, the way it is, it feels to fire them, even maintain them. I've known people that love to take the rifle or the pistol apart, clean it, put it back together. They find that cathartic. So now we're living in that universe.
Right.
What would be stopping people from using the range as an armory, where that is yours to sell? It has to be approved by yourself, or whatever the case may be. Would that be something that American people could get on board with.
Probably not, because, for instance, like,
Bear in mind, everyone can afford the bills now.
right. But that's not, it wouldn't be that type of issue. What it is like, so for instance, out like the town I live in alone, it probably has about like 4 or 5 different gun ranges. And then on top of that, I can easily travel to other cities that are close by that they themselves also have a few different gun ranges. And if I'm going to like say a friend of mine, they live in, say, Webster, and there's a gun range or 2 or 3 in Webster, but their gun is at one range, and I want to go shooting with them. That means I would have to then go to the gun range here in town where my guns are, still have to end up checking them out, going over to Webster to fire them there, and then having to go all the way back home to the gun range here to check them back in and things like that. And I understand that is a argument for convenience. It's inconvenient to do all that, which we gotta recognize that is going to be a big factor with the American people. If it is inconvenient for you, you're least likely to want to have that kind of thing passed. And then again, that goes off of, going off of me personally. Like I said, having my stuff on me has always been what I've been growing up. All my stuff as a kid end up getting sold off through the give me a sec, I'm thinking of the storage. The storage facility end up selling off all my stuff, and as a kid. And so I've always kept my stuff with me, like so much that whenever I was in high school, they gave us a locker. They gave me a locker for me to store my stuff in, but I never did. I just kept everything in my backpack and carried it all around with me because I like to keep my things with me.
Yeah. Now, you've looked at it from a personal perspective of what you'd find it a pain in the ass, but you could potentially see the logic behind it. Now, my thinking would be is to keep guns out of the houses of people like the McCloskeys.
Mm-hmm. Like the McCloskeys.
Which are the couple that pointed guns at protesters as they were marching past.
Yeah. And
yeah, that's the way I'd be viewing it, keeping it away from them idiots. That's why I'd be a proponent of having an armory. I mean, it could even be a community armory where you go, you sign it out, and then you take it back there and you go home.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I'm an advocate of, if you're going to have firearms, is the firearm is registered to an individual, and the rifling, if it has it, is held on record for access to law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So the particular firearm is registered with its rifling, and the person it belongs to is also registered to that firearm.
Mm-hmm.
If it's then sold, huge background checks have to be carried out, plus registration moves on to the new owner, etc., etc., etc.
Right.
And it's all because I don't trust people like the McCloskeys to own them.
Right. And
I mean, I think you're fairly sensible enough to... Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I understand where you're coming from with this, and it is a very, very great argument. However, the thing is the American people are going to vote on things that they feel is great. And like I said, the majority of the American people are not for things that are big inconvenience to them. And the way they will see it is, if they even got on board of not having guns in their own home, if they got on board with that, they would not do with this whole entire having them at a range and the range be the armory because of the inconvenient factor. That's just the way Americans are in general. We sit there and we get mad if we have to wait in a fucking drive-through for more than like 20 minutes. I mean, you got to realize that the American people, if it's even a mild inconvenience to them, they're not going to be for it. These are the people, you get some people who, if they wait 30 minutes at a restaurant without getting their order taken, they sit there and, I seen a picture of somebody who, in ketchup and mustard, wrote on the counter, waited 30 minutes, no service, and then they took off. Like, these are people who, if it's a mild inconvenience for them, they're not going to be behind it. And having a gun at a gun range, and that's their armory, is going to be an inconvenience, especially if they're going over to, say, a different town that has has a gun range. It's a mild inconvenience for them. Now, is that going to be for everybody? No, of course not. There's going to be some people who are going to actually accept that type of thing. But I would say that a great majority of people in the United States would not go for that simply because of the inconvenience factor. We already know that we've got the basic income.
What disturbs me about America is, I'm going to say, what this disturbs me about America is nobody can give an actual figure how many guns are owned, who owns them, where they're owned, where they're kept. It's just mind-boggling. The only data you have is how many guns have been sold, and even that's not exact.
Yeah, because the thing is like when it comes to gun sales and stuff, is what doesn't get taken into a factor is person-to-person gun sales. Because, like, say, for instance, let's say I have a gun, and I have a friend of mine who absolutely loves this gun that I own. And he's like, hey, can I buy this gun off of you? And I'll say, sure, yeah, why not? Let's see here, you're a friend of mine, and I spent about $700 on this gun. Let's just say, let's just call it an even $350, and you can have it. And they'd be like, awesome. And they gave me $350. And those type of gun sales don't go into account because now a person owns a gun that was not theirs to begin with, and now they own a gun. And these types of gun sales also don't have to go through background checks. These types of gun sales, they don't have to be... you could sit there and report it, saying that you sold your gun to somebody else. But then you do, the only types of gun sales that is if I go to a store and buy a gun for myself or for somebody else. And, because they'll ask you, is gift for someone? And so, I can either say, oh, this is for me, or, oh, this is a gift for someone. Let's see here. Theoretical says, on gun ownership, I'm more with Pine Snake. Prevents casualties if you have no loaded guns at home. Handguns can't protect you from the government anyway. Yes. The thing is I like I said, me and Pine Snake would agree on a lot of this. I personally, like I said, I own them, but I would agree. Like I said, if like I said to Pine Snake, what I would do is if we had basic level income, if we had everybody the American populace taken care of, what I would do is if they had a buyback program, some of my guns I probably would keep my 1911 and my shotgun, and I'd probably get a hunting rifle, and so in which case I would get license, because if they decided to do a buyback program, I would sell off any guns that I have that I, don't necessarily need. Like, I don't necessarily need the 6-shooter. I don't. I would keep the pistol for target practicing and for going out at the deer lease, because when you go hunting, if you have a pistol on you, like say for instance you're at the stand or let's say you are at base camp and you go out to go take a piss. Well, the pistol is good for snakes. Like if a snake comes up, You can shoot the snake, and it won't end up biting you and causing you harm. So you can shoot the snake in order to keep it from potentially either harming you or killing you, depending on what kind of snake it is. And in Texas, of course, we have a big issue with diamondback rattlesnakes. These snakes can definitely kill you if you don't seek medical attention right away. And so, and there's, of course, other poisonous snakes in Texas that can definitely kill you. So I would keep that, plus the hunting rifle. And I would keep the shotgun basically because occasionally we do go bird hunting. And you use a shotgun for bird hunting. So I'd keep the shotgun, my 1911, and any hunting rifle. Everything else I would sell off back to the government if they did a buyback program type of thing. I would, and...
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing out at this point that...
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say, at this point, I think I kind of agree with you. I'm not anti-gun.
Right.
I'm against American culture around guns. That's 100%. I personally go with a format close to what Japan has. Mm-hmm. But it's incredibly hard to get a gun license over there.
Right.
And it's ongoing assessment as well, which I think would be my preferred method.
I think...
and I would like to own a firearm. However, I would keep it at a range.
So I think that
or an armory.
Yeah, I think that the best I think the best you can get out of America, and this is going to be the best that American citizens will allow. This isn't the best that I think that should happen. Just what I think would be the American citizens would allow, which is letting people have guns at their house. However, never have your guns loaded, and keep the ammo and the guns separated. And like so, for instance, my 1911 right now is fully loaded with a full magazine and one in the chamber. Under new laws that they could pass that I think that the American people would go for would be like taking the one out of the chamber and keeping the full magazine separated from my gun. So like have my actual ammo in like a gun safe, and having the pistol somewhere else within the house. It could be even next to it in a different gun safe, or it could be in a dresser drawer or something like that. I think that is what
a lockbox or something like
that.
Yeah,
like a lockbox or something like that. And I think that is the closest you're going to get out of American people. There are some people who actually already do that type of stuff.
I think you could actually push it a little bit further. You could actually get them to have licenses, gun licenses, which says you have taken some sort of gun safety course and you have to renew it every 5 years.
Yeah, well...
You've got to go through the course every 5 I think you might actually get that with most Americans.
Yeah, that is something that can happen. The thing is that I'm talking about...
Although I wouldn't call it a license.
Yeah, the thing is I'm talking about as far as storage of weapons. Because you were talking about wanting it stored at a range or something like that. And I don't think American people go for that. I think that they would go for the storage of having it at the house, but having the gun and ammo separated. Because there's a lot of places that already have that as a law in the States. I think New York is one of them. Like if you especially if you're traveling, you like New York has some ridiculous laws with traveling. Like for instance, you have to have the ammo separated in different bags, and you have to there's so many extra laws that are added there that even when people follow it to a T, they still end up getting arrested. So that I think is stupid, that they get arrested for following the state laws, and then they get their guns taken away from them as soon as they get out of jail, and that is stupid.
Yeah, I mean, it seems a bit silly if you're following the law, you still get arrested for it. Um, but then again, with New York, I think they learned a lot of hard lessons back in the 70s and 80s,
Yeah, but the thing is that New
which
York still.
pushed it down that route. However, I also think it's
Oh, sorry.
Go on.
I was just gonna say that New York is also like. It doesn't mean that people there don't have guns. Like that they don't. That the actual government doesn't know about, because all they have to do is go to a state that is more lenient when it comes to gun laws. And what ends up happening is they take those guns from that area and bring it home. And in which case, what happens is the New York government doesn't know that they own these guns. And so, like, just because you're stopping the people who are traveling in through plane, because it's mainly at airports. They go through, they find out that these people have guns on them or whatever, and that they're separated and all the laws have followed. And then they get arrested for still following the law. But the thing is, the actual citizens who live there, that is, like they can get guns from more that are less strict on guns, and bring them back to New York and by driving, and they won't get there's no arrest that happens. Nothing happens to them, because if you drive into New York, nothing's gonna happen. You don't get stopped or anything.
Yeah. So each state has its own laws, which you've just said. How difficult would it be, from a legal sense, not a socioeconomic sense, how difficult would it be to change the law to have stricter gun control, which raises the bar than what you currently have federally, which is basically nil?
So, from a legal standpoint, the only thing that would make that difficult is the American people. So, for instance, if you go to create a law, that makes it stricter, let's just say if we're here in Texas, for instance, Texas is a big, heavy Second Amendment state. We are big on our guns. We love our guns, and any kind of talk of changing laws about guns is met with complete and utter, what's the word? Aggression, really, because the very second you even talk about sensible gun laws, they sit there and they're trying to take our guns, and it's like, the fuck they are. They're telling you these are sensible gun laws that should be in effect, that aren't in effect right now. And so so whenever we're talking about this type of stuff, it is incredibly hard for the American citizens. However, all one it really has to do is make some kind of law. What they would do is they can sit there and propose it to the legislative body, and all that needs to happen is a vote. In which case, the American people do have a right to talk about it and give their opinions on it, and then the legislative branch will sit there and put it up to a vote, and people and the people within the legislative branch will sit there and vote on it. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to side with more Republican values, since we have a predominantly Republican body in government here. And so anything that were to pass as far as more reasonable gun laws, I think in order to get that passed, it would be a pain in the ass, because you would have to talk to the American the Texans, the everyday Texans who own guns, and you'd have to talk to them on their level. Like, you'd have to say, okay, what is your issue with this law that they're trying to pass? And they'll sit there and give you, well, they're trying to take away our guns. And it's like, well, no, actually, that's not what this law is stating. It's stating, that these are measures in order to keep guns out of the people who don't need them and whatever. And that gets into even further nuance, because then they're going to ask, well, who's deciding who doesn't and shouldn't have these guns? And so it's so you then have to sit there and come up with ways of showing that this is something that's actually a positive, and to get a Republican to see if this is a positive, it is really, really difficult, because of the fact that they are there's a lot of Republicans and a lot of people who are pro Second Amendment who think that there's people who should own rocket launchers, that everyday people should own bazookas, everyday people should own machine guns, everyday people should own, all these humongous mass weapons, including like nukes. So it's like, it gets really hard.
Could you imagine Elon Musk with a nuke?
Could you imagine your crazy, super conservative Uncle Joe with a fucking nuke? Like, this man who thinks that the liberal who is sipping tea...
I don't think he'll afford the billions to buy one, though.
Do what?
I can't imagine you, crazy old uncle, being able to afford like the billions of pounds it takes to make a nuke.
Well, I mean, but the thing is like, if
that's why I said Elon
yeah,
Musk.
but the thing is,
I mean, Kenneth Copeland could, and I won't trust him.
Yeah, but it's like, but let's just say you have a millionaire Uncle Joe down the road because of whatever fucking reason he won a lawsuit, back a couple years ago, and somehow he can afford a nuke. Like, this guy who thinks that the hipster liberal down the road is a threat to the American public, you really want him owning it? Like, these are the, people who advocate for that literally want even your crazy Uncle Joe to own a nuke. And so it's like, if you put a nuke in everyday American citizens' hands, there's going to be nothing left, because people are fucking crazy, psychotic, and they anger easy, and they're going to end up nuking people.
Oh, I've just had an awful thought.
What's that?
I've just had an awful thought. If your old crazy Uncle Joe had a nuke, can you imagine what 4th of July would be like?
Oh my god, that would be fucking...
You'd just think it were a firework and press a big red button.
Yeah, and then bam.
Oh god.
Bam, at least an entire city, if not damn near half the state is gone, depending on how powerful the nuke is.
Yeah, and you've also got fuck what they call it, the 4 presidents, Mount Rushmore. That'd be gone.
Oh yeah.
Especially if we had another term of Trump.
Ugh. But thank goodness we're not having another term with Trump.
Although that's an interesting question. How the fuck have they kept his hand off that button? People say his what you call it, his enablers have done nothing for 4 years. I think it took all their efforts just to keep his hand off that big red button.
I don't know.
That's the only reason I can come up with how they fucked up so much.
I honestly don't know. To be honest, I wouldn't have even given him the codes. I would not give Trump the codes one bit. I don't trust him with the codes.
I don't trust him with the codes to get into his bedroom.
Yeah, I let alone the codes that can cause a fucking war. Like we thought that back in the day, like whenever he sat there and was taunting Kim Jong-un we thought that was bad enough. Like he sat there and was like a little rocket man and saying all this shit about Kim Jong Un, and I honestly thought that we were gonna die soon, because home dude over here wants to sit there and taunt fucking dictators who are over here. Like, he's starving his own people. What the fuck do you think he would do if Americans were taunting him? Like, this isn't even like a joke here. Like, that's like fucking like you were trying to literally, like, thank goodness Kim Jong Un eventually ended up liking him, because if he didn't, we might have been fucked. Like, don't get me wrong, I know that the rest of the UN would...
I'm surprised you're not fucked anywhere.
Yeah, well, we basically are. But the thing is like, the thing about that situation is, the UN, the very second North Korea would have sent nukes our way, the UN would have sent, everybody in the UN would have sent nukes to North Korea, and North Korea would no longer exist. But the simple fact is they'd then have to end up trying to stop those nukes that are heading towards America from reaching us. And let's just say that they're able to stop a great majority of them. There's still going to be at least one, maybe two, that end up hitting America and devastating those areas. And so, like, even if we do survive, the thing is we would have still been fucked.
The thing about nuking North Korea is South Korea's fucked as well, with the strength of the nukes that we have these days.
Oh, yeah. Like, they would have to send a nuke that somehow magically only stays within North Korea's borders, but that's going to be damn near impossible. You're going to end up affecting South Korea and other areas that are around North Korea. Like, it's not just South Korea that's fucked. It's going to be other little tiny places that are fucked. Let's see here. So, sorry, I'm checking. I got a message from somebody on Plenty of Fish. Sorry, look, I'm alone.
Other than not being a narcissist.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, nothing. I was talking about something else.
Other than being a narcissist, or not being a narcissist, other than not being a narcissist, what do you think the difference between a Trump and a Biden presidency will look like?
Well, so we can already see a bit of a difference, just in what's been going on here lately. So, take for instance, we have Trump. Whenever it came to his to a response team for COVID, he had disassembled a pandemic response team. He had sat there and did all this other stuff that could have helped COVID from being as bad as it would have been. Would it have stopped all deaths? No, by no means would it have stopped that. You will never hear me say that every single death is on Trump's hands. I would say that would be a very ignorant statement, because even if Trump didn't disassemble the pandemic response team, even if he had all the people that he needed for the response team, there would have still been deaths. So we can get that out of the way now. I will never say that every single death is responsible because of Trump. However, the great majority of those deaths are because of his response to the pandemic. However, Biden isn't even president yet, and he's already has a response team set up. He's got people that are looking at things. he hasn't, and this was before he had this set up before Georgia and PA and Michigan did a recount. So he had that set up in place before anything were to happen. So he's also said that, like for instance, he's sat there and said, now of course this is talk right now because he was not president and he's not in a position to be able to do it yet. But he's also sat there and said, if there's laws and stuff that are discriminating against people, I would just change those laws. So Trump had sat there and has made laws that repeal the Don't Ask, Don't Tell, that make it to where trans people can't join the military, has made it to where trans people are excluded from the protective list. And that has been Biden's response to it, is that if there's something that's keeping people like discriminated against, I would just change those laws. So we already see those two small things, which are really actually kind of big things in general, that show a difference between the Trump presidency and a Biden presidency. So we do have several differences between the two. It's not just the narcissistic levels.
So one of the things that I would criticize Trump for is he's not followed through with any of his campaign promises.
Mm-hmm.
He's tried to build a wall, but he basically replaced the wall that was already there.
Yeah.
Biden made quite a few promises, which, as you say, started to follow through on with his cabinet posts and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he will at least attempt to follow through, assuming he loses one of the Georgia seats?
Do I think that Biden will?
Because then he would obviously not have control of the Senate.
Right. Are you saying that? Do I think that Biden
at least attempt to follow through on his promises?
I think that Biden would definitely try to follow through with his promises. I think that he would do whatever he can, and of course, we have to look realistically and say that that when it comes to the promises that the president makes, everything that they want to do has to go through the Senate, has to go through other members of the different powers, and so we have to realize that there are going to be some things, if not, that he's going to get pushed back on, and there's going to be some things that just will not get through due to the fact that the Republicans will push back as much as they possibly can. But as far as do I think he's going to try to get these things accomplished as quickly as possible? I do. I think that he will try to push through a lot of the things that he's promised. I will happily accept that I'm wrong if it comes out that he didn't, because a lot of people assume that because a lot of us supported Biden that we are super Biden fans, and that's not the case. Biden was by far the first pick of a lot of us, but he is the one that was most likely going to be elected of any other people. Not only that, but he was also he has came up with some very good ideas on what he wants to have done. So I think that I think that
that kind of leads into the next obvious question. I think the next obvious question is, in the race, people like Jen Cougar from TYT and others was saying, look, we'll get him into power. He's the one that is most likely to win and to work with. And once he's in, we can push him left into a reasonable UBI and universal health care.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's possible?
I think that under Biden, if you bring it up with Biden, and Biden tries to, and you explain it to him that this is a positive, I think that he would go for it. I think that he would indeed he would indeed try to push for what's the word? He would push for UBI. I think that, I mean, hell, look at his response to people for the pandemic. He sat there and said that that he believes that people should be paid to stay home right now until this pandemic is taken care of. So, yeah. I think that a UBI would be something that he would be okay with.
I think he could definitely be pushed for a stronger security safety net, especially for times like during pandemics, or even just due to unforeseen circumstances, you can no longer work, health issues and things. I think he could definitely be pushed in that direction, which is progress to what you currently have.
Yeah. So I think that given
do you think he'd also push for?
Go ahead.
No, go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say that I think.
No,
I think that
I was half thinking through something and.
Okay. But yeah, I think that if you explain it to him, in a positive way, he will. He would definitely be okay with a lot of different more socialistic programs that would be great for America, as far as like UBI and universal health care and things like that. I honestly think that he would be okay with these things if explained to him in the right way. Vosh says that Americans have taunted Trump several times. Okay.
Yeah,
Which, by the way, welcome Vosh to the. I didn't say this public on air. Welcome to the stream. But what does that have to do with anything?
Can you really taunt Trump for repeating what he said?
I don't.
Is that taunt?
I don't see it as taunting, but who knows? The idea I got it.
I suppose giving him facts and figures could be taunting.
I don't know. I think being and the thing is we also have to ask, is being made fun of taunting? Like, I haven't I've made fun of Trump. I've sat there and said, that Trump, I've called him names and I've sat there and things like that. But is that taunting? Like, could that be classified as taunting him?
Well, actually, yes, I have taunted him. I've recently been using #BunkerBitch again because barely anyone's seen him, for the past week or two. And I just assume he's back down in his bunker hiding from reality.
Yeah, he could be. That is definitely a possibility. Another possibility is the fact that he's probably finally getting to the point where he might be conceding defeat. And instead of actually going online and conceding, he is deciding to just stay quiet about it. He's done one post that is almost